my name is Trindalee Huey, student number 4751511784. This activity is for the purpose of assessment only and will be recorded, viewed and stored following TAFE Queensland procedures. All participants consent to being recorded for these assessment purposes. Welcome to today's training session of Promote the Values and Ethos of Public Service. In this session, we'll be covering a number of things that we as public sector employees encounter in the workplace that indirectly or directly relates to the values and ethics of a public sector employee. So to get started, let's talk about legislation, its purpose and how it applies to the public sector and its employees. We have the Public Sector Act 2022 Queensland, Public Sector Ethics Act 1994 Queensland, Information Privacy Act 2009 Queensland, Anti-Discrimination Act 1991 Queensland, and Human Rights Act 2019 Queensland. Are you familiar with any of these?
No.
So the Public Sector Act 2022 Queensland. The purpose of this act is to provide a framework for a fair and unified public sector that serves the people of Queensland. It applies to all public service departments, public sector and service entities. It is responsible for ensuring the public sector prioritises and is receptive to the community, ensures fair treatment of the public sector employees, and establishes an effective, unpolitical representative of the public sector. Public Sector Ethics Act 1994 Queensland. The purpose of this act is that it sets out the ethics principles that each public sector employee should embody and follow. These ethic principles are considered fundamental in the function of an effective public administration and provide the basis for codes of conduct for public service agencies, public sector entities, and public officials. These ethic principles are as follows: integrity and impartiality, promoting the public good, commitment to the system of government, accountability and transparency. Information Privacy Act 2009 Queensland. The purpose of this act is to provide the fair collection and handling of personal information in the public sector environment, a right of access and to amend personal information in the government's possession or under the government's control, unless it is contrary to the public interest to give the access or allow the information to be amended. Okay, Anti-Discrimination Act 1991 Queensland. The purpose of this act is to promote equal opportunity for everyone by protecting them from unfair discrimination and from sexual harassment. It ensures employees are treated on their merits rather than their characteristics such as race, gender, age, sexual orientation, impairments or disabilities, etc. Human Rights Act 2019 Queensland. The purpose of this act is, put simply, to respect and promote the human rights. Public sector employees should endeavour to respect the human rights of the public and the entities of the public sector. Right to information. Okay, so the right of information relates to the Right to Information Act 2009 Queensland. It provides protection for individuals' privacy, providing the framework for lawful handling and management of individuals' personal information, and allows members of the community access to information across all public sectors. Access to this kind of information can be for the purpose of being informed or for the need to have it amended. However, information can be withheld from the public if there is a good reason not to disclose it. A member of the public may obtain public service records by talking to the government agency directly. So government agencies include public universities, health agencies, ministers, local government like our councils, government-owned corporations like Energex, and Queensland government departments like Queensland Transport of Main Roads. And the Right to Information Privacy application form looks something like this. Examples of materials that can be released under the Right of Information is the disclosure and includes health records like x-rays, correspondence such as electronic emails, hard copies like building plans. Okay. Unethical conduct. So reporting unethical conduct. Being in the public service, we are committed to the highest ethical standards as public service employees, and we are required to ensure we meet our obligations to report suspected wrongdoing, including conduct not consistent with the Code of Conduct for the Queensland Public Service. How to report unethical conduct. So, say you see something that you deem a suspected wrongdoing or misconduct. Who would you report it to first? So like a line manager, it's encouraged that you would report your wrongdoing or misconduct internally in the workplace first. This means making a public interest disclosure and to report to your relevant supervisor, manager, or human resources. In doing this, you're protected under the Public Interest Disclosure Act 2010 Queensland, which facilitates public interest disclosures of wrongdoing in the public sector and to afford protection from reprisals to persons making the public interest disclosure. This means that your identity will be kept confidential, you will be protected from reprisal, and anyone that causes a detriment to you for making the public interest disclosure. And the person can be charged with a criminal offence as well. There is also the option of reporting wrongdoing and misconduct to the Crime and Corruption Commission, Office of the Queensland Ombudsman, and the Chief Judicial Officer of a court or tribunal. Okay, so conflicts of interest. Public sector employees are responsible for fully disclosing their conflicts of interest that may have an influence or be perceived to have an influence on their ability to properly and impartially perform their duties. Conflicts of interest is documented in section 1.2 of the Code of Conduct for the Queensland Public Service and sections 89 and 183 of the Public Sector Act 2022 Queensland, which forms a part of the framework we must abide by as public sector employees to ensure we are not obtaining personal gain or benefit from conflict of interest. Conflict of interest can be identified in a number of different ways, being seen as actual, perceived, or potential. Some examples of conflicts of interest can include being involved in the recruitment of a family member, which would mean you wouldn't be able to evaluate their suitability for the position without bias. Having a secondary employment which could provide the opportunity for personal gain, such as obtaining confidential information from the government sector. Owning real estate, including private real estate, again using confidential information for personal gain, such as knowledge of future developments. To avoid breaching a conflict of interest, the simple solution is to declare it. To declare a conflict of interest, public sector employees must fill out a declaration of interest form, which looks something like this, and submit it to their chief executive or delegate. So perceived, actual, and potential conflicts of interest. Perceived is when your private interest can appear to influence the performance of your current duties. Actual is direct conflict between your current existing private interests and your current duties. And potential is your current duties could conflict in the future with your private interests. Okay. Next is diversity in the workplace. The Queensland Government supports diversity and inclusion in the public sector by introducing strategies and emphasising workplace culture. Such strategies include the Queensland Public Sector Inclusion and Diversity Strategy 2021 to 2025, which emphasises on key principles that will continue to improve diversity and inclusion in the public sector. These key principles include leadership, accountability, and capital management, human capital management. Having diverse leaders that are inclusive and accountable for their actions can help create a workplace where diverse groups feel safe and promote participation, voice their concerns, feel as though they are being heard, and challenge non-inclusive behaviours. Human capital management can help by promoting blended workplaces with flexible work options, reporting employees' experience of inclusion, providing education to adopt inclusive cultures in the workplace, a review of recruitment processes to accommodate diversity. The principle is that Queensland public servants should support inclusion and diversity and continue to create a public service for all, where everyone feels safe, respected, and included. We're now moving on to ethical values. So lastly, what is 5 ethical values we can strive to uphold in the workplace on a daily basis?
Fair and equal treatment.
Yeah, fair and equal treatment. So that would be like, I would like to say teamwork and respect, loyalty, professionalism, inclusiveness, accountability, integrity. That's just a few references. And that's my presentation for today. These are my references and the legislation I used to complete this presentation. Thank you.